Turn that off. Good morning. We're a little bit late. My PC at 10:13 decided to reboot. Nice. Although we're in green screen world today, I haven't got my nice neat background on today. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Roy. How are you?
I'm feeling stressed now, but I'll get over it soon enough.
Very sorry to hear that.
So we're talking today. What do you need? I should have put a comma in there. To get better at. What do you need to get better at? Comma. For success. And it's a bit of a spin-off on a mastery session, a sales mastery session we did this morning. What do we need to get better at for success? And there was two aspects, and I'd like your views on this on today's Tuesday Chew. Do we need to get better at what we do, our deliverables, or something else? Because, we know loads of professionals. Hundreds and hundreds of great professionals. And they all work hard at getting better at their deliverables, which is great, right?
When you say
is that the only thing?
Do you want to give us an example of what you mean by deliverables, just to kind of clarify a little bit?
Well, we've all heard of CPD, continuous professional development. Going on reading books, going on courses for our deliverables, whether you're an accountant, getting to be a better accountant, marketeer, doing more qualifications, working with groups. And again, experience is getting better at your deliverables as well. And we have this conversation a lot. When we speak to people who've been in business or been doing what they've been doing for sometimes decades, are you any better now than you were 5-10 years ago? And I think it's almost universal. They say, yep, I'm better. And so they should be, right? And then we go, well, because you're so much better, if you're, double, 3 times, 4 times better, or 10 times better. And quite often I hear like the 7 to 10 times better over several years. And I know there's this misnomer about 10,000 hours, isn't there, to mastery. I'm not sure that that's the case, but so they're several times better. So you're several times more successful than you were 5 years ago, our starting point. And that's where we get the So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Thoughts?
Okay, so we're talking about, do you spend your time solely focusing on developing your core competencies that will actually help you to bring more value to your clients' lives? Because that's a pretty important thing, right? So you're talking about, you mentioned there the Malcolm Gladwell misquote of the data where he basically grabbed that lovely headline that said, you need 10,000 hours of practice to become a master at anything, which of course is bollocks, because that's a misquote of the actual data, which comes from a guy called Anders Ericsson. Read the book, Anders Ericsson's book, Peak, if you really want to understand the proper data that Malcolm Gladwell was misquoting. But hey, 10,000 hours of practice is a lovely headline grabber, but nothing that simplistic could ever be real, right?
So what's that guy's name? I'll just put that.
Malcolm Gladwell is the guy who misquoted it. Anders Ericsson is the guy who you actually want to read. So Anders Ericsson, Ericson. So Peak is where he talks about not just practice, but a thing called deliberate practice, which is where you work within a very set, structured framework, and you have iterative practice where you build muscle memory and you work just outside of your comfort zone to constantly iteratively improve at what your area of functional expertise should be. And of course, that's vitally important. It's vitally important to be good at what you do. But I have a question for you, Roy. If you are the best of the best of the best and constantly have this growth mindset where you keep on getting better all the time, but you don't actually have anybody to do it for, then how do you know you're so good?
That is an interesting question. That's a challenge. well, we've done lots of courses. I mean, we were talking earlier about I've been faced by real experts, and I know they're experts because they've got a whole load of letters after the name, so therefore they must be experts, which I didn't understand a damn word they said, but they must be. Well, they're far more clever than I am, I guess. I don't know.
I think cleverer was fine. That's a perfectly acceptable word. Don't think you needed to correct yourself on that one, to be fair.
It just goes to show, even when I say it right, my power of English is poor. Yeah, they're far cleverer than me.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
So yeah, how do you, and I guess, how do you define how good you are, and what does it bring? I mean, there was this old phrase about the world is full of derelict geniuses. I can't even remember where that comes from. The people who are really, really smart, really, really good at what they do, and they're living in a cardboard box at the corner of the road. What do you need to get better at for success? And it's a conundrum, right?
Yeah,
we did talk. I think it was something I talked about last week, wasn't it? We said building a business which matches the background noise of the business you're getting isn't a recipe for massive growth and success. I mean, if you like that, absolutely fine. But again, that was a concern for me.
Yeah, and I think that sort of ability to actually, I suppose, implement the expertise that you've spent so long nurturing, developing, and proactively, deliberately working on is really the point where that's the difference that makes the difference, right? So there comes a point where you've actually got to have some people where you are doing this stuff for, that you are actually making some form of transformational difference to their lives. Now, whether that's on an entirely altruistic, charitable basis, or whether it's more in business, it's kind of irrelevant. Ultimately, some point you've got to find somebody who needs what it is that you do, persuade them, convince them, have conversations with them where they discover your difference that you could make to them, and really sort of work through why it is that you add value to them. And once you've had that conversation and you actually start doing stuff for them, that's where the real kind of rubber hits the road, and you discover whether or not you actually are any good at this stuff. Because, there's all the theory in the world, all the practice in the world is of no blooming use if it doesn't actually make difference to somebody somewhere. And that's really, I suppose, the nature of the conversation we're having.
Again, well, it took me down a road of, I guess we have to define on our own what success actually means. And this is where the question came from. Let's just talk about. I mean, we're business growth people. We're all about sales growth and leadership growth. Let's just focus it in on, business growth. How do we, what sort of things should we do to get better success in business? I mean, what defines success in business? It's personal, but there's that, sales is vanity, profit is sanity. And money tokens, to me, money tokens are just enablers to move a step further, either for the business that we want or the life that we want. But I guess it all starts with money tokens, doesn't it?
Yeah. I quite like that phrase, tokens, actually. They're quite like that. We haven't pre-planned this, but I don't suppose you've got a tenner to hand, have you, by any chance?
A tenner? I don't carry much money. I did have a battered old tenner, for an example. Let's see if it's still... Yeah, here we go, battered old tenner.
Yeah,
there we go.
So why, as it happens. Okay, then. So let's just see if we can...
We're both rich.
Right. So if I handed you this tenner, you hand me your tenner.
Hang on. There we go.
Right, okay. Now we've swapped. Thank you very much. Now let's pull back. Okay. Do you feel any poorer?
No.
Okay, that's the concept of fungibility just explained in one little example there, because you can exchange these things one for another, like for like, don't matter. That you can just exchange them. It doesn't make you any poorer or richer. You can always get more money. So yeah, there you go. Profit is sanity. Turnover is vanity. These things are just just fungible tokens. There you go.
Fungible tokens. I don't even know what that means.
Well, we just explained it. You can exchange one like for like. That's what fungibility is.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you know what's a non-fungible token?
Go on.
You measure it using this thing, time. You get 86,400 non-fungible tokens every day, because every single time a second ticks past, they're ticking past as we're giving this. That's it. They're gone. You can't get them again. That's non-fungible. And yet we spend ages thinking about investing this stuff, and we spend very little time thinking about investing this stuff. What the hell is going on? Something wrong with that, isn't there?
So, I mean, where's the message? Where's the message been dropped? Because you're right, that is the one non-renewable resource. Tenors and bitcoins, they're all out there. There's plenty of them, but time is, no one told us when to run, right?
You missed the starting gun. There you go. Bit of Pink Floyd for you. Why not? Yes, very good indeed. And then one day you find 10 years has got behind you, as they say.
And that's the thing. So what do we need to get better at success? So we talk to people. I talk to people. What do you need to get better at success? They get better at their trade. They get better. They try and get better at their deliverables. And if you ask people, what would it take for you to be more successful this week in terms of business growth? More successful this week than you were last week? Is it getting better at your deliverable, or is it getting better at business, getting better at sales? Which is the one? And we all want to think about getting better at our deliverable is the nirvana, and that's the right thing to do. And here's another question. If you was a client, would you want them to be better at the deliverables or the actual sales? And I guess that's the thing that's messing with my mind at the moment. Which should it be, and why?
Great question.
Your opinion.
So there's a couple of things to this. The first thing is we are not in any way, in the answers we're giving here, seeking to say that you shouldn't be bloody good at your core competencies. Of course you should. Of course you should. However, the key thing here is to actually make those core competencies matter. And for them to matter, they have to actually change somebody else's world. They have to add some value in somebody else's world. Now, whether that is a prospect, a client, or somebody else that you are working with, why the hell would it ever matter to them to be doing business with you, or for you to be delivering your core competencies to them? And only they can answer that. Only they can answer that, because value is always, but always in the eye of the beholder. And for you to actually help them to self-discover, to have that eureka moment where they go, actually, you know what? The gap between where I am today and where I actually want to get to, the big impact of not filling that gap, that's actually a big enough problem that I really do need to solve it. And what I need is a level of expertise, a level of competency that I just don't have in my world right now. And in fact, this person that I'm talking to right now is that expert, and they're going to be able to help me to fill that gap in. And it's a worthwhile investment, not just in terms of the money, those fungible tokens, but also the time that it's going to take, because there's always going to be some time involved. Even if it's just the time that you take just to go through the hassle of change, and there's always a hassle to change, even if it's just installing new software, there's a hassle to change because it involves changing your behaviors. So I guess the key thing for me is a big part of what defines success for you, or will help you to define success if what you're looking at is business growth or personal growth. It's really about being able to have those difficult, consultative, trusted advisor conversations that will help you to move the dial so that somebody understands why it is it's worthwhile going through that hassle and that expense and that investment to actually make a change. And if you can't have those kind of consultative conversations, those trusted advisor conversations, then you end up almost by default in a typical standard sort of salesy kind of thing, where what you find yourself doing is almost trying to persuade somebody that you're really good at what you do. And it always ends up sounding self-interested. It always ends up sounding needy. And it always ends up sounding like you're more interested in you making more of this than actually in their outcomes. And you can never, ever, ever be a trusted advisor if you're focused on your particular selling outcome and closing a sale rather than being interested in their outcomes. If you're interested in their outcomes, then great, genuinely, you will always help them to achieve those outcomes. Even if you're not the right solution, you'll help them to discover that. That's great, that's fine. But if you are in any way purely interested in this, you're a fox in the chicken coop, not a trusted advisor.
Oh, I love that, fox in the chicken coop. And I think this is the salespeople have got themselves a bad rep. And there's going to be lots of people out there say, well, I'm not in sales. Well, if you're in business and you're customer facing and you're responsible for revenue, you're in sales. And you know, I don't like this word sales. It just gives this wrong connotation. But I also think that stereotypes don't invent themselves. If people don't trust what your outcome is, if people don't trust that you're asking in their best interest, it's going to be a hard conversation. And if they don't trust everybody they deal with in your world, it's going to come down to price. Because they don't believe a damn word they say. You're just the least risk because of what you cost. And so I got a buyer who just pinged me out of the blue this last week, and downloaded all the things that they hate about salespeople. And I think he was looking for a new supplier. And it was quite venomous what he said. We should have to do one just on this. And say stereotypes don't invent themselves; they're still out there. And your job as a practitioner of your art, if you're a sole trader or in a particular business, is there's lots of smart people out there. And the more letters you've got doesn't necessarily mean the smarter you are or better you are at your job. But how do you bring value to your prospect? And again, I'd just like to throw this one in there. When you have a prospect coming to you for a solution and they give you all the parameters of the solution, is it possible that they are not as good at this as you are? Else they'd be doing it themselves, right? Is that possible?
Well, I mean, has it ever happened before where somebody comes to you with the wrong brief? I mean, it really comes back to the question of how was this brief originally arrived at? You know, it very often, and listen, I've worked in some big organizations, as I know you have. I've run some big organizations, as I know you have. And I've certainly been in that sort of part where the original brief was born. And things do not get born into this world fully formed. And what happens is you sit around the board table and you look at that problems and you go, oh wow, God, we've got this issue. You know, blue sky, guys. Let's think about this. And you get your whiteboard out, and everybody in the team starts throwing in ideas, and you come up with this amazing, grand solution. And this is what the business needs. This is what the business needs. And it leaves the boardroom and it goes on a little journey. It goes on a little journey through the marketing department and the technical department and the operations department, and every single department rubs their chin and goes, ooh, that'll never work. Ooh, oh yeah. Well, we're going to have to just knock that off, and we can't really do it like that, and we can't really do it like this. And eventually, this wizened, pathetic, pale imitation shadow of what came out on the whiteboard in the boardroom eventually makes its way into an RFQ or an RFP or an ITT, basically a document which gets sent out to a bunch of people who are going to pitch. And they eventually result in a bunch of half-assed pitches that are based on a diluted version of an original brief. And it's a bag of shite.
Do you remember that picture that used to go around? I mean, a lot of people won't remember this. Comedy wasn't social media once. You used to have like a sheet of paper with a nice drawing on, and it'd be stuck through a photocopy about 1,000 times, and you'd have black dots all over it by the time you received it. But there's this one, it was a swing, wasn't it? What was perceived and what was actually delivered. Yes. Did not match. And I think as a practitioner of your art, it can hold us back if we look at something and go, man, that's a crock. That's not going to work as well as it should do. I think we can sometimes hold back rather than have this discussion with the person and saying, is this really what you perceive? And we talked today about it, and they just got the answer back saying Just answer the questions. Like any exam, this is an exam. Answer the questions. The pressure's on you to answer the questions correctly, not on them with the problem, which also sounds a bit mixed up for me.
Yeah, yeah. Because has it ever happened to you where you win a tender process, and then on the other side of it, you end up with a bunch of what we might call scope creep, if we're being really kind, or actually
Scope creep, yeah.
it starts to a bit like an elastic band. It starts to snap back to where it was originally came from, and as you realise that the brief was this diluted thing that didn't really meet the original needs that prompted the whole blooming thing going in the first place. So I know I'm being a little bit harsh in the way I'm describing this, but it's true. This happens more often than not.
I've been in meetings where we've gone back and say, well, as it is, it's not going to work. It's going to cost more money to make it do what you originally wanted it to do. And then the discussions, the uncomfortable discussions, well, you should have seen that. You quoted for it. You should have told us about this. Because you always put this little caveat, if you see anything, put it in here. If you find our screw-ups. And then we've got people back in the process who are trying to justify why it's okay the way that they did it. And we get a lot of self-justification and arguments. And it's hard. It's a hard discussion.
It is. But you're dealing with decision-making at an individual level, at a team level, and at an organizational level. And decision-making at those three different levels works very, very differently. So at an individual level, people make decisions purely based on their own emotional and financial needs. So the emotional thing will actually drive it. Typically the financials and the commerciality side of things intellectually will help them to justify the decision. So at an individual level, you can help them to self-discover what to do. At a team level, there's politics. And some of those politics will be around what does it take for me to be successful in this team? And some of that involves maybe just, keeping their head down, depending on the type of culture that they're in that team. Some of it involves actually, dare I say, kissing the boss's arse, if it's one of those more hierarchical teams. And some of it might actually involve, if they're a really healthy team, bringing in some constructive challenge. But those are rare. Those are really rare, because those sorts of teams, it takes real effort, management and leadership skill to foster a team like that. At an organizational level, you've basically got a bunch of teams, and the chances are that some of them, if not all of them, are actually in some level playing their own politics. So when you've got a bunch of people who represent individual teams, you've then got a team made up of people who are also got the politics of individual teams. Is it ever likely that decisions get diluted?
I'm confused already. Yeah. And so, okay, we've got about 6 minutes left. How does someone bring value to their client or prospects in order to maximize their business success and maximize the outcome for the prospect? What sort of things do they have to do? Because you and I know that these things are tough. And if we sit and wait for an RFQ or wait for a quote and just answer the questions, we're not in business. We're in estimating. We're in proposals. We know what proposals are. You're down on one knee, hoping that someone's going to say yes, so you have a happy moment later on.
Absolutely, a happy ending somewhere. Anyway,
a happy ending somewhere. But how do we? What sort of hard things do we have to do in order to bring value when your prospect thinks you're just a commodity?
I think that's a really, really good question. And in 6 minutes, it's going to be a difficult one to answer, but I'm going to give you 3 answers. Answer 1 is mindset. Answer 2 is around your behaviors and your process. And answer 3 is around your technical competencies. So answer 1 is around the mindset, which is about you have to genuinely show up, wanting to understand what value looks like for them and seeking that genuine truth, which might well be that actually you're not the right solution for them. And you have to be comfortable with that. The mindset is one of genuine trusted advisor, partnership approach. I'm on your side, not self-interested. I'm not so much interested in filling my bank account as I am interested in making sure that you get the right outcome, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect. The second thing is your behavioral side of things. This is process. So you've got to have a set of clear, defined steps that you follow religiously so that when you do something right, you can repeat it in the future. If you do something wrong, you know where you've gone wrong so you can improve it next time. If you do something that's okay, you can actually iteratively improve that through better practice next time. It's a way of leveraging the law of marginal gain so that actually you're constantly improving yourself. And finally, the third part, the technical competency. If I had to choose just one skill set that you should develop in order to add value to your clients, it's ask bloody good questions and listen to the answers, to actually understand the answers, not so that you can think of the next clever question, but so you can genuinely get it. So the value that you add as a trusted advisor, and ultimately the amount of money that you're going to put in your bank account every month, but that's by the by, is down to the questions you ask, not the answers you give.
And sometimes we can be scared of asking those questions or think we've been boxed in that we can't ask those questions. And here's the thing: if we are boxed in and we can't ask those questions, and that happens, what should we do? What's our mindset got to be?
Absolutely. And it comes from that mindset, doesn't it? Heard and understood. Sure that you seek the truth.
Yeah. I mean, again, that was just talking about tenders. And for me, if I feel as I'm boxed off and I can't ask questions, I've just got to answer questions, it's not me. I'm not going to get it. But on the other hand, it gives us an opportunity to dig back further in the process to look at the next tender. And the thing about value is not just at the beginning of a sale. We can add value throughout the sales relationship. And sometimes we forget we've got to add value to regular clients if we're selling an off-the-shelf repeatable product, whether it's a technical product, where they just keep on buying these. We have to add value there as well. And I know that, and from my personal experience, if we ask what value is it bringing to you to deal with us, it's a hard question to ask because they might turn around and go, that's a great question. We should go and look at someone else. It's like, so let's not ask that question. But the reality is you ask that question and you can do more of the things that you're doing right. What value you bring, you can repeat that. And here's the thing is you don't change the things that is bringing them to you in the first place. And I think knowing how you add value is and keep on doing it and not changing anything is another big thing with value, because it's in the eye of the beholder. We've got about a minute left. I've got something I'd just like to do a bit of a pitch, but no one would have got to this end, got this far by now, but I'll still do it anyway. So on the 4th of November, that's this Friday, at Staffordshire University, I'm doing a sales day. Staffordshire University picking up the tab. There are still places. And it's a full day training, real training. I will bring value if you bring value. Just ping me if you would like to go along. Matthew, anything to add?
Nothing other than this is something that's going to cost you nothing but an investment of your time. We've already said that time is your biggest non-renewable resource. Can we guarantee that you'll get some value out of it? If you show up with an open mind and want to develop a consultative, trusted advisor approach to your selling and business development process, then you will definitely get value out of this. I'm not going to be there, sadly, because I'm off delivering training to some of our clients. But Roy will be there all day. It's a lovely facility, Staffordshire University. It is, as I say, fully funded. So you'd be mad not to do it, frankly.
Yeah, I was going to say it's air conditioned, but I don't think that matters today. But it certainly did. It did matter when we did the last one in flaming June.
Ooh, yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Lots of tea and coffee and stuff. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Next week we're going to be doing our Tuesday Tube. Maybe not at this time, but from somewhere else.
Mysterious. Keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Great. You take care, everyone. Matthew, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from Me? I really don't know which way I've got to be pointing. It's
You're
that way. That way.
That one.
Take care, everyone.
Yes.